Hi, welcome. A little while ago I created a video listing my top 10 favourite Beatles songs. Now as a flip side to that video I thought to myself, how about a video on your favourite and least favourite song on each album? So this is it. Remember though, this is all for fun. My opinions are my own and you'll probably scratch your head and ask, what? Why did you choose that one? Maybe I'll give a reason as I go along. So what I'm going to do is work through each UK release album, so sit back and get ready to disagree. I'll always welcome comments. Do you have a favourite and a least favourite song on each album? It's an interesting conundrum because really, can there be a least favourite when the vast canon of work produced over that period of 7 years is so unparalleled? Let's start at the top then. Please Please Me, released March the 22nd, 1963. Now this record contained 8 Lennon and McCartney compositions, in addition to 6 other numbers which were firm live performance favourites in the Beatles' varied repertoire. For me, the standout track is Ask Me Why. It gently meanders along, but uses some nice minor chord variations, kind of to keep it interesting. And for live performance bands breaking into music in Liverpool and Hamburg with rocking tunes, in this song we see John showcasing his sensitivity. I think it's just lovely. My least favourite song on this album is Boys, sung by Ringo, and his first outing as a vocalist on a Beatles album. This was a cover of the Shirelles song, and really it's just skippable for me. With the Beatles, released November the 22nd, 1963, the second album of that year, and it includes 7 Lennon and McCartney tunes and 1 George Harrison composition, as well as 6 cover songs. My favourite song on this album is All I've Got to Do, and it's kind of that stop-start rhythm that gets me. But the skipping track, and therefore my least favourite, is Little Child. It's a regurgitation of stock lyrics, in my opinion, of oversimplified rock rhythm for pop, and it's kind of meaningless. I could imagine George Martin saying, lads, we need one more song to fill up the 14 numbers. What have you got? So yeah, it's just a filler for me. A Hard Day's Night, released July the 10th, 1964, as the soundtrack album to the movie of the same name. Now the writing duo of Lennon and McCartney are coming into their own, composing all 13 tracks, one of which George led on vocals. My favourite, You Can't Do That, is the cowbell holding the beat. I love it. See my top 10 Beatles songs here. And Ringo's drumming is great on that. Least favourite, I'll Cry Instead. I think it's the throwaway lyrics. Don't get me wrong, there's kind of no bad Beatles song, but I think it's just another filler for me. The Beatles For Sale, released December the 4th, 1964, the second album that they released that year. And this album marked a departure from the upbeat tone that had characterised the Beatles' previous work, partly due to the band's exhaustion after a series of tours that had established them as the worldwide phenomena in 1964. Now, of the 14 tracks on the album, 7 were Lennon and McCartney compositions, and the other 6 were covers. I think I'm going to place Every Little Thing as my favourite song on this album, and the cover song, Kansas City, Hey, 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 perhaps a weak album due to their exhaustion, but since they'd been writing all the songs on their previous album, this for me feels like a step back by including covers, and I guess the factors of touring meant their writing was less prolific. But yeah, Kansas City just gets on my nerves. Help! Released August the 6th, 1965 as the soundtrack to the film of the same name. Now 7 of the tracks on the album feature in the film, and there are 10 Lennon and McCartney compositions, 2 from Harrison and 2 cover songs, one of which, Act Naturally, is sung by Ringo. It's not a bad pop album as it goes, and my favourite tune is The Night Before. And the least favourite is a joint bottom on the list, actually. Dizzy Miss Lizzie seems out of place for me on this album, and I skip this track all the time. But not as often as I skip Yesterday, the most covered song ever, and for me, the most overplayed. Perhaps Yawns Today. Next came Rubber Soul, released December the 3rd, 1965, the second album that year for the band. Now, the songs on this album demonstrate the Beatles' increasing maturity as lyricists, and in their incorporation of brighter guitar tones and new instrumentation such as the sitar, the harmonium, the fuzz bass, and showing the group striving for more expressive sounds and arrangements for their music. There are 11 Lennon-McCartney songs and one from George Harrison. My favourite is Girl, and I have to say I don't have a least favourite. They're all good tunes. I suppose I might have least listened to song, and that's George's Think For Yourself, but it's not a least favourite. So yeah, the first album that doesn't have a least favourite. Revolver, released August the 5th, 1966, and released 8 months after their previous album. And this was the Beatles' final recorded project before their retirement as live performers, and marked the group's most overt use of studio technology to date. Building on the advances of their late 1965 release Rubber Soul, it's since become regarded as one of the greatest and most innovative albums in the history of popular music, easy for me to say, with recognition centred on its range of musical styles, diverse sounds and lyrical content. Of the 14 tracks, 12 are Lennon and McCartney compositions and 2 are George Harrison's. My favourite and least favourite are George Harrison tunes. I Want to Tell You is my favourite, and its strange kind of chord progression and kind of gets you, what? Where's it going? Gets me every time. But my least favourite is Love You Too, and I think it's good that it's not a pop tune for my uneducated ears, because I think it's too experimental. Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was released May the 26th, 1967, and for many regarded as the first concept album. And you all know the story, right? I think I'm with George Harrison on this album, though, in that he stated he liked half the songs and hated the other half. The top track for me, Fixing a Hole. I love Paul's quirkiness, but it's his vocal range that does it for me on this one. Least favourite, Good Morning, Good Morning. It just jars with me. The Magical Mystery Tour. The EP was issued on December the 8th, 1967, in conjunction with the TV movie of the same name. The EP contained 4 Lennon and McCartney tunes, 1 from Harrison, and for the first time, a song credited to all 4 members, which was Flying. What works for me? I Am the Walrus. Just sublime. Amazing tune. What doesn't work for me? Blue Jay Way. For me, someone must have said, George has got to have something on the album. Let's get that one in. I just skipped this track. The Beatles, aka The White Album, released November the 26th, 1968, and was an eclectic mix of songs and music from a band on the verge of a breakup. It yielded 30 tracks, 4 from Harrison, Ringo's first inclusion of a self-penned tune, and 25 from Lennon and McCartney. Now, there's a lot of differing styles here, and I could rank so many as my favourite, but I think I'm going to go with Obladi Oblada because it's such a happy tune. I know, everyone hated it except Paul, and so do many listeners, but it sounds like it was a lot of fun recording. Least favourite, sadly, it's Good Night. I'm pretty sure I've not actually listened to this song in its entirety. Maybe I'm just getting old, just kind of out of place completely for me. Yellow Submarine, released January the 13th, 1969, and issued as a soundtrack to the animated film of the same name. Now, side 2 contains 6 George Martin compositions and 1 based on the title track by Lennon and McCartney. Side 1 has 4 Lennon and McCartney songs and 2 from George Harrison. My favourite track, All Together Now. I love it. Just happy. Least favourite, probably all of side 2. Abbey Road, although recorded after Let It Be, it was released before it, so keeping my list in order of releases, Abbey Road came out September 26, 1969. Side 1 contained individual songs, while side 2, for the most part, the medley, if you exclude Here Comes the Sun and Because. The 17 tunes, 1 from Ringo, 2 from George, and 14 from Lennon and McCartney. My standout track is I Want You, She's So Heavy. And my least favourite, there isn't one. Honestly, of any of the songs came up on my playlist, I let them run to the end, even Maxwell's Silver Hammer. This could be the perfect album. Finally then, Let It Be, released May the 8th, 1970. Now, I understand the concept, writing new songs kind of on the spot. Let It Be chronicles the Beatles writing and recording new music over the course of a tight 3-week schedule in January 69, before rehearsing, then performing their new songs for their first live performance in 3 years. Can you actually write something of quality in that space of time? Sure you can. In fact, you can lock McCartney in a room and half an hour later he can come out with a song. He finished World Without Love for Peter and Gordon like that. The story goes that the song had only 2 verses and Peter encouraged Paul to complete it. He apparently left the room, came back 10 minutes later with a completed song. Anyway, Let It Be is probably an infusion of tensions, drug addiction, film camera distractions, and for me, it reflects it in the songs. Now, I've spoken earlier about the songs I skip. Well, this is the album I skip. I can't say I really ever listen to it. Just doesn't work for me. Favourite songs, For You Blue. Least favourite, Dig It. What a cacophony. And if you look at the dictionary definition of a cacophony, it's harshness in the sound of words or phrases and an incongruous or chaotic mixture, a striking combination. That's Let It Be for me. Just kind of like, where does it start? Where does it stop? Well, there you go. It was just for fun, you know. No one will pay me to critique an album, and hey, what do critics know anyway, right? Art is subjective, and thankfully the Beatles provided enough eclecticism to pacify everyone. Hey, maybe you can please all the people all of the time. That's it, just a quick video. Thanks for watching. Catch up with you soon in another video. Bye for now.